The Lion of the West, the inspiring life of Shaykh Hamza Yusuf. Quick timeline: 1958 he was born, 1965 he converts, not 65, 75 he converts and goes out studying in New York, England, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Algeria, Mauritania. 1987 he returns to the US. 1996 he's a full-time imam and starts Zaytuna Institute. 2001, 9/11 happens. He's an outspoken critic against terrorism and against wars, upgrades to a global stage. 2003 to 2007, he's still doing all the media work, everything else, campaigning, everything else. And he publishes 5 written works between that period. 2009, the Institute officially converts to Zaytuna College at Berkeley. 2012, started a $19 million brick-by-brick campaign to fundraise all over U.S. and all over. 2014 he becomes, around that time, becomes vice president with Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayy as president of Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies with his teacher Sheikh Bayy. He's part of so many different other advisory groups in Ivy League schools and other organizations and all that I didn't mention, because the 2 most significant are Zaytuna College and this Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies. 2016, 2019 were those 2 little controversies. Not really big deal. Continues Shaykh Hamza, mashallah, may Allah preserve him, continues onward with Sandala, Sacred Caravans, Deen Stream, Rihla, RS, Zaytuna, and 1,000 more things that I couldn't really mention here, inshallah. It all started on New Year's. On January 1st, 1958, in Walla Walla, Washington, Shaykh Hamza Yusuf was born as Mark Hansen. He was born of 2 academics. They had a total of 7 kids, of which he was the middle child and the first boy. On the left, you can actually see that his sister has converted, mashallah. And in the middle is his brother Troy, who, as of the video, he did not convert. A Northern European blood, Greek and Irish and other blood in him. And his grandfather was also the president of the Orthodox Church in Marion County, so he had some religious leadership genes in him. Shaykh Hamza says about his dad, my father, David Hansen, passed away at 8 p.m. on the 16th of April, 2016, at the age of 89. He left the world in a good state. He was born into great wealth and advantage and was afforded an excellent education. At the age of 17, he volunteered to join the Air Force at the height of World War II and served for 4 years. He was a good father and the single most well-read person in the Western canon I have ever met. The Huntington Library gave him a small cubicle where he carried on his work on Elizabethan manuscripts. My last conversations with him were about the liberal arts, of which he was a lifelong student. He lived with me on and off for the last few years and remained independent until the last few weeks of his life. During his stay with us, he always joined in prayer with my family. A few weeks ago, he said the Shahada with his physician, Dr. Asad Tarsan, and requested that he be buried as a Muslim. Alhamdulillah. And now for his lovely mother. He says, my mother, Elizabeth Ann George Hansen, died last night, August 9th, 2016, meaning his dad passed away on April 2016, and his mom passed away the same year on August. With her hand in mine, surrounded by her children, she was 95 years old when she was born. There was an Ottoman caliph ruling much of the Muslim world. She lived through the Great Depression, World War II, the Vietnam War, and the Civil Rights Movement, which she was actively involved in long before many others joined. My mother spent her life serving others. She never complained and was the most ethical person I have ever known. She hated bigotry, prejudice, and any form of discrimination. She spent her life fighting against injustice. All her life, she volunteered in various organizations and served for years on the Homeless Committee in Marion County. Even into her 80s, she volunteered teaching Mexican immigrants and farm workers how to speak, read, and write English, a language she loved and spoke beautifully. In 2010, in Fez, Morocco, she took the Shahada with Sidi Ismail Filali Baba. Yet many years ago, just after I had first embraced Islam, I was telling her about the faith when she said to me, I knew the Prophet Muhammad was a prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, long before you were born, dear. She had also taken me to a mosque when I was 12 to pray the Friday prayer in order to expose me to an important world religion. She lived in my home for the last 2 years of her life and always prayed with us, even going into prostration despite the difficulty. SubhanAllah. So that goes to show you the beautiful parents that Shaykh Hamza had. One is super passionate, fighting for the civil rights and for environmentalism and many of the things that now are popularized, but back then, especially for an American white woman to be involved in such activity was a taboo thing. So passion and living with principles, and later on joining the beauty of Islam with him, and then his father also. Of course, he lived with his mother more than his father. She raised him as a single mother, and you can see that closeness even in the videos where he's sitting next to her, and the respect and love and beauty that he shows her. It's really inspiring. So his mom in the interview actually says different things about Shaykh Hamza. The interviewer asks, what do you remember about your son? And she says, he was super duper curious. He would always ask why. Why is this way? Why? And you can see that through his lectures on Islam or on his fascination with so many other topics. Just really getting to the nitty gritty and the depth of things. So he was super curious since a young age. She also says he was a great talker, right? He was someone that had that charisma, loved to talk, loved to explain things, loved to break things down, etc. And he was an adventurer. She actually mentions a story about them getting of Shaykh Hamza getting lost, little Mark getting lost, and when they looked for him, he was actually completely fine and talking to a police officer, like casually, and just socially, So someone that was an adventurer and a leader. She also mentioned at age 12, he said, I read War and Peace. And so she was like, oh, that's nice. She thought that he skimmed through it or something else. It's a big book, she says, and it is. So they go and watch the movie War and Peace, and Shaykh Hamza actually goes and compares the movie and its script to what was actually in the book. So then she's like, then I believed him that he actually read it. So he was an avid learner and already a reader by age 12, an avid reader, so really awesome. She also says he was a natural athlete. Any sport that he got into, he would excel in it very naturally. And when she was talking about sports or anything else, she said this nice line which I really love. She said, whatever he did, he seemed to already know how to do it. As if Allah gave him that gift to really break down whatever he's putting his mind to and master it very easily, very casually, very effortlessly. She also then smiles and remembers his smile, that even from a young age and even now, he had the most wonderful smile. His face would light up. His face lit up when he would smile. So just some beautiful memories from mother, and you can see some of those parallels of him being a great talker, super curious. That's why he's a great scholar now, adventurer. Now he's not adventuring just for the sake of adventuring, but now he's adventuring globally, talking to world leaders to try to spread peace and mercy and love that Islam also calls everyone towards throughout the world. So then this Shaykh Hamza, this Mark, gets into a different track, you could say. He had one track, which was passion for civil rights, which was maybe some academics through his father's lineage and his own interests. And he was learning languages. So let's talk a little about his upbringing. He actually went to a high school that was very unique. It had different divisions for different people that were skilled in different things. So Shaykh Hamza, for example, if someone's skilled in mathematics, he goes to one department and one side of the school. So Shaykh Hamza was put in the people that were gifted for language. And it was a very good school that he benefited a lot from. When he was young, he went with his sister also around Greece, and there he met with a saint, not a living saint, a dead saint. And in Arabic, his name is Jurej, right? Saint George. And Shaykh Hamza says that really impacted him, because this man was, centuries old, 16 plus centuries old, yet his body was still preserved. And Shaykh Hamza and his sister actually kissed his feet at that time. He wasn't Muslim, of course. And it really affected him of how someone's body could be preserved for so long. And even though our Islamic traditions guides us that we shouldn't put in public display such righteous people, it was something that really affected him and sparked his curiosity. Anyways, Shaykh Hamza also then got in a car accident which really shook him up. He came near death. He had a, you could say, near-death experience, and he said for almost 1 year, it was as if he wasn't here. Like he was touching death, or he had one of those spiritual experiences which are hard to explain. But death was something which wasn't like a conceptual thing for him. It was something he palpably experienced. And it just sparked this whole new transition in his mind about what happens after death. What is death all about? What is this other realm that I've touched but don't really understand? And that led him to seeking answers. So he went through different religions. And of course, his mother, as we already mentioned, at age 12, had taken him to a masjid to pray, had taken him to other world religions to actually check out their beliefs and to appreciate them and respect them. So he had a glimpse when he was young about these different religions, but now he took it more seriously in a fascination about the other realm, the unseen realm, and life after death, or reality after death. So he studies different things. He read Huston Smith's World Religions book too, and he also studied a little bit about Islam. He says about the Shahada, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, which means I bear witness that there is no God but God, and wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, and that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger. He says he took it like a Zen koan. What does it mean, there's no God but God? And he kept sitting on it, and this is the same curiosity he had before of why, what does this mean? So he took it like a Zen koan, and a Zen koan, at first brush, you don't really understand it. You have to sit on it, you have to sit on it, you have to sit on it, and then it comes and dawns on you. And he says that's what happened when he sat on it, that he realized that it meant that there's no true worship, no one truly worthy of worship, no one truly who's God except for God himself, right? And it sounds simple, but it was the simplicity and the depth of what he understood there that fulfilled that spark. His driving questions, some of them were, what happened after death? What is the right path towards preparing for death and beyond? So you could see a mixed element of the curiosity of Juraj. You can see his own life experience of coming near death. You can see his study of world religions, of being prepared for death, all driving this young teenage Mark to actually take his life more seriously, to live a life worth living. And thank God, thank Allah, that his path eventually led him to the right way of the beauty of the path of surrender, the path of Islam. So Shaykh Hamza converts at age 17. Shaykh Hamza decides that he wants to take this seriously. He wants to further his knowledge. So he's in California, he's in Marin County, and he actually goes first to New York. Islam at that time wasn't just a you could say a world religion with Arabs and Pakistanis and Indians and African Americans and other people. It was primarily an African American movement and religion. So Malcolm X had just passed away around 10 years ago, and from the prison systems to the streets to big cities, major cities, Islam was a movement that empowered the African Americans to actually strengthen their identity, to be proud of the truth of faith, to learn a new language that is spoken in Northern Africa, etc. And so he chose that path, and it just goes to show you the beauty of his commitment to the truth, right? Once he understood the Shahada, he says, once he read a couple of chapters of Quran until it talked about, I think, Surah Al Imran, the 3rd chapter, talking about Jesus and how Jesus was just a man. He was a holy man, a blessed man, but just a man, similar. An analogy can be given similar to Adam, peace be upon him, who was also born without a mother and father. So Jesus being born without a father is not such a big deal to call him son of God, but that he is a sign of God, that he is a servant of God that is holy. So anyways, the death experience, the Shahada as a Kohen, the Quran reading led him to convert to Islam, and he went on in the path. But with the support of his mother, he goes to New York first. spends some time there, and then he goes to England. When he goes to England, he actually talks to different community members there. He says the brothers there were part of a Sufi community, so tasawwuf and spirituality was a big emphasis, of which he is also a conveyor of nowadays. And after England, he actually meets with a scholar that says, hey, I'll make it easy for you to study Islam. Of course, he's not, independent financially, so because of that help and sponsorship, mashallah, he was able to then travel to his main place of study, which is United Arab Emirates. So goes from California to New York to England. I didn't put here that he had a brief trip to Timbuktu, and he really appreciated different cultures to learn about people and all that. I'm trying to highlight the path of knowledge that he went on. So he goes to UAE, and there he studies for multiple years. He was actually in an apartment without AC, cinder block apartment for almost 5 years, and till he transitioned to being a muazzin, the caller of the azan, the call to prayer, where then he stayed in a masjid. So he stays in UAE. He meets some great scholars. He also sees the broken Islamic education system there, how some of the teachers were just cursing the students, and the students were uninterested, etc. But there, by the help and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he actually meets with the scholar that he is just impacted by. That, wow, this guy is somewhere else. Shaykh Hamza, obviously, the drive for him to study Islam or even to become Muslim was the preparation for death and to be right with God, to live a right, pure, and fulfilled life, right? And all of those answers led him to the truth of Islam. UAE, he studies for multiple years, but he meets this man, and he's very impressed by the character and spirituality and the otherworldliness of this man. So he inquires and he asks, and eventually someone else says that this guy is great and amazing, right? He's preparing for death and he's living the knowledge, but his father is something else. His father in Mauritania is something else I can't even tell you. You got to go study with him. So Shaykh Hamza, after completing some studies here, decides eventually he wants to go to Mauritania. But before he does spend some time in Saudi Arabia, which I didn't really put because the dates aren't as clear, but it's clear that he met with Sheikh Habib Mashur al-Haddad, who used to be in Makkah, Jeddah area, and also, of course, being near Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, one of his key primary teachers, even to this day, was very influential, coming to UAE, Saudi Arabia, etc. So anyways, after that stint of, you could say, the Gulf, he goes to Spain, actually, and spends over a year there, just studying Arabic and other things, polishing things, and meets with Dr. Umar F. Abdullah, who becomes a great colleague in the coming decades, for the rest of the decades, mashallah. Spent some time there, and now he has intention to actually go to Mauritania. But Mauritania is a small population country, and it's pretty difficult to go there. So in between, he actually goes to Algeria. He plans to complete his hifz of the Quran, memorization of the Quran there, but he gets access to Mauritania earlier than he thought, and he actually then goes to Mauritania. Mauritania, he's really ready to face on the struggle, because this man that he's trying to meet is in the middle of the Sahara. There's malaria and other sicknesses spread, and in fact he actually got deathly sick, and if it wasn't for a French tourist, he says, that gave him some right medicine, he would have been a goner. So Allah saved him there, and mashallah, then he spent some time. The primary studies that he did, however, were in UAE. He spent time with Sheikh Murabit al-Hajj, who we'll talk about in a little while, and the most spiritual man and you could say fatherly figure that he found there, and other shuyukh there too. Here are some of the names of the other teachers. You can Google many of these names and you'll find out how scholarly and deep these men were. Now for his two key influencing teachers, the great influence, the great love, and the awe that he has when he speaks about these two men. Number one is Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya on the left, And Shaykh Hamza himself on numerous occasions praises him in different ways. He says on one end that he's a master of usul. So basically he understands at a deep level the principles of Sharia, the principles of Islam, and how to apply them in new contexts. And he also has said that he's a master of the inward and the outward. Shaykh Abdullah, mashallah, from a young age memorized text upon text, text upon text, is familiar with not only the Quran and the Hadith, the 6 books. Sometimes he'll say in front of Shaykh Hamza that they're not in the 6 books, meaning he's familiar with them, with the fiqh, with the fiqh texts, and with the usul al-fiqh. Mashallah, very scholarly figure. And also he has experience with the world. Shaykh Abdullah was actually vice president of Mauritania at a time, actually wrote the constitution to, at one point, actually had to face some politics and went to jail for it, and then later on gained honor at a scholarly level and as a peace ambassador throughout the globe through his involvement in the Gulf. So Shaykh Abdullah is a great teacher for Shaykh Hamza, and someone that he always not only discusses with, but he has taken him as his, you could say, partner and you could say friend and scholarly, anchor. And they work together, and they've started a couple of organizations together, spreading global peace and spreading the message of Islam and scholarliness as best they can. So Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayya, mashallah, right there. On the right is Shaykh Murabit al-Hajj, rahimahullah. He passed away recently. When Shaykh Hamza talks about Shaykh Abdullah, it's with love that, this is my teacher and my friend, you could say. I believe he said at one point, my best friend. But with Shaykh Murabit, it's a different relationship. It's one of, just awe, and one of, the love is one of awe. And here he says, I never met anyone like him, and I don't think I ever will. The Shaykh Murabit, and he's there in the back, right there, right, was just this fatherly, godly figure. And maybe through pictures, or even some people, Allahu Alam, if they met him, maybe you can't see it directly. The hidden realities of people are within. But this man would pray for hours. He was completely melted in praising Allah constantly, even in his sleep doing dhikr. Under his breath, he would either be reading Quran or saying La ilaha illallah, and just completely giving his life and his heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He actually ran away from the main city life so that he would avoid the sins of the people, and isolated himself in the middle of the Sahara. And now his madrasa, where he teaches Islam and other things, is over there, and lives basically under a tent, nothing else, and spent a good time with Shaykh Hamza. In fact, the first 3 months he actually told Shaykh Hamza to sleep with him, right next to him, so that he'll get some blessings. And just for hours, in the cold, praying long hours, spending his time in dhikr and Quran and teaching and in prayer and in loving Allah. He spent many time and much hours in front of the grave, reading Ihya Ulumuddin by Imam Ghazali, and just an amazing human being, subhanAllah. So here's some of the virtues of the path of sacred knowledge. I mean, what motivation does someone have to be a Muslim at 17 and spend 10 years of your life, from African ulama to Yemeni to Sudanese to American, to all of these different teachers and colleagues and all of that, because they had the love and seriousness of Islam. And Shaykh Hamza is just a representative of this path that has been going on for 14 centuries. So here's a beautiful, beautiful narration that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. He says that Man salaka tariqan yatlubu fihi ilman salaka Allahu bihi tariqan min turuqil jannah. Whoever travels a path in search of knowledge, and it's talking about sacred knowledge, right? And Allah will make easy for him the path to paradise. Verily, the angels lower their wings for the seeker of knowledge. Verily, the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, even the fish in the depths of the water, will seek forgiveness for the scholar. Verily, the virtue of the scholar over the worshipper is as the superiority of the moon over the stars. Verily, the scholars are inheritors of the prophets. They do not leave behind gold or silver coins, meaning the Prophet don't leave behind money, but rather they leave behind sacred knowledge. Whoever has taken hold of it has been given an abundant share. Subhanallah. This is in Abi Dawood. So, Shaykh Hamza just followed this mark, just followed this path, the path of the Prophet ﷺ, the path of the Sahaba, the path of our ulama, to seek sacred knowledge, to transform your life with the sacred knowledge and sacred company, so that you may become a new human being that takes one's life seriously, knows what you need to do in life, and can actually forward that knowledge onto others. Now talking about Shaykh Murabit al-Hajj, Shaykh Hamza says, he told me several times, Hamza, this world is an ocean, and those who drown in it are untold numbers. Don't drown. I've never seen anyone like him before him or after him, and I don't think that I ever will. May Allah reward him for his service to this deen and his love and concern for the Muslims. He was never known to speak ill of anyone. He said to me, and what is man other than a comet that flashes brilliant light for a moment, only to be reduced to ashes? Shaykh Murabit al-Hajj is the master of the science of Islam, but perhaps more wondrous than that, he has mastered his own soul. His discipline is almost angelic, and his presence is so majestic and ethereal that the one in it experiences a palpable stillness in the soul. As the Arabs say, the one who hears is not as the one who has seen. May Allah grant him the highest level of paradise. Ameen. Shaykh Hamza, just even when I met him, and of the different things we could talk about, from world changing to knowledge to other things, the one thing that would just bring light to his eyes was talking about Shaykh Murabit al-Hajj and the love he had for the man. Alright, Shaykh Hamza, after all that time and the blessed company with Shaykh Murabit al-Hajj, his spiritual guide, mentor, anchor, and role model, goes back to America, back to the lions, or I could say the sheep's den, right? And so he goes back, and now think about it, 10 years you saved yourself for marriage, you studied Islam, you studied throughout the globe, and now you're going back to a very materialistic culture. So subhanAllah, he had a lot of effort to go there, and also he has to settle, of course. So this is Shaykh Hamza in the early years. He comes back in 1987. He actually doesn't take the scholarly route and become an imam. In fact, he actually goes and starts studying. He studies nursing, he studies English, he studies comparative religion over the course of the years. In fact, up for the next decades, he kept on and off with the studies. The main job that he actually worked on was nursing for a little while in a cardiac unit. So he, even when you read his book, Purification of the Heart, he mentioned a lot of different scientific facts about the heart. Of course, he is a very erudite scholar, so he can study that on his own, but he formally also studied it in university setting and worked in that regard too. Studied English, studied comparative religion, and in fact, recently, he actually, where he's actually teaching in Berkeley, Zaytuna College, he actually finished his doctorate too. So he is Dr. Shaykh Hamza Yusuf Hansen, mashallah. In 91, Zaytuna University in Tunisia actually gave him an honorary doctorate as well. He was part-time lecturer to ISNA at the time. 93 is when he first gave his first talk. In 95, he actually became popular enough that he actually traveled to London and gave a speech in front of 5,000 people. In 1999, he had a BBC interview, and it's a pretty haunting interview because he talks about, a lot of the peaceful things and how, we need to stick to the principles of Islam. And I don't mean haunting, I mean like foreshadowing, because 99 that interview happened, and then 2001 9/11 happened. So anyways, at 1996, when he was age 30, around age 38, he was already the imam at Santa Clara, and he teamed up with Imam Zaid Shakir and started Zaytuna Institute, mashallah. He taught regular classes there, and in fact, he actually brought a scholar from Mauritania who he was super excited about, Sheikh Khatri, mashallah, who he kept and still keeps in touch with. And so he invited Sheikh Khatri there for 9 months, and also invited Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayah for the first time in America in 1999. So mashallah, he's growing in popularity, both as a scholar himself connecting people to the tradition. You can see some of his YouTube videos where he's teaching the basics of Islam, both to Muslims and also to non-Muslims, and breaking down the concepts in a very eloquent and beautiful manner. And 97, 99, his teachers coming from the Gulf and coming from Mauritania goes to show you how he's trying to establish this formal institute. Now let's talk about his marriage. He got married to someone named Liliana Trujillo, and he was just at a computer lab in Imperial College. He was apparently writing a book at the time. Maybe he was writing The Purification of the Heart, Allahu Alam. And when they met, Shaykh Hamza was very serious. She needed some computer help, and at first he didn't say anything. At night, she needed some more help for the computer, so he actually fixed it. And there was an automatic chemistry. She was talking about him with his sister, and they were like, we probably won't meet. But Allah made them meet again, and Shaykh Hamza actually felt that chemistry, but he didn't want to cross any lines, right? So they met a few times in a public setting at the college, at Imperial College in California. And she was Catholic at the time. He didn't mention his religion. He meets her for 3 or 4 times and says, now that basically we have chemistry, mashallah, everything else, he presents marriage, that he doesn't want the dating scene. He doesn't want, first base, second base, third base. He doesn't want any of that. He mentioned the hadith that when 2 people are alone, the third is shaitan. The third is the devil, unless the person commits to marriage, meaning to start a lifelong relationship. And she actually says this, that he didn't want anything. There was no dating. He said, when a woman and a man were alone, the third person is shaitan. And I was so blown away. He showed me so much more respect than any other man. How he explained about the prayer, watching him pray, the fact that he loved God so much, for me, was one of the biggest, most beautiful. He was one of the biggest, most beautiful person I'd known in a person. That was probably one of the major things that really just made me realize that this man is special. And eventually they got married, and mashallah, they had 5 kids together. Alright, 2001 happens, 901 happens. Shaykh Hamza's life goes from, as he says, from the little league baseball to the major league, meaning he was hitting some small balls and then baseballs, and now the fastballs are coming. Now he has a whole new game. His life completely changes. I'm going to try to summarize the work he's done, which has been too much, in 4 different categories. Number 1 is different media appearances he had. Number 2 is his work in education, which is his passion and what he studied for. Number 3 is his global advising work. And number 4 is guiding the next generation of leaders. So let's get to it. Number 1, his media appearances. One of his most famous ones is in early 2001. Not early 2001, after 901 is BBC Hard Talk, where he clearly is against the Iraq war and is clearly against any other type of war. And one of the things that happened with Shaykh Hamza is, at a time where the Muslim community, the American Muslim community, was completely confused, had no spokesperson, had no one to actually look up to, Shaykh Hamza comes as this white convert imam that has all the qualifications of a scholar, and comes and denounces terrorism and denounces war at the same time. So he's clarifying our position, that we're against terrorism from both sides. We're against Muslims doing terrorism for unjust reasons, and majority of Muslims are not terrorists. And on the other end, he says he's against any war being sponsored, any killing, and that's not the way for a solution. So throughout the years, he's been in hundreds of you could say, throughout the years he's been through hundreds of different, you could say, interviews, media appearances. Here he's on an Arabic channel. He comes in Morocco. He comes to NBC Saudi Arabia. Here he's in front of the president of Turkey. Here he's at the Muhammad Ali funeral, walking down with Cat Stevens. Here he's in another interview. Here he's actually teaching at the NBC channel in the Gulf, teaching Muslims, some Muslims and non-Muslims about Islam. So, mashallah, he has such a diverse presence in the media. But what really got him, catapulted him to a whole new level was in 911, and the spokesperson that he became, the voice he became for America. And one of the reasons even for creating this video is because a lot of us that went through it, saw through it, grew up seeing that, know about the role of Shaykh Hamza, know about the sacrifice, know about the genuine person he was and still is, and know about everything that he's done for us. Whereas the new generation that's coming up, or those who weren't connected at the time, are sort of superficial when it comes to his analysis, and we'll talk about that in a little while. All right, education. He has multiple different books. Some are smaller than others. You have The Purification of the Heart, which is probably his bestseller when it comes to books. It's based on a poem by a great sheikh, and he basically put this beautiful commentary of the poem. Every section that he put a commentary on it. It talks about different diseases of the heart, jealousy, anger, etc., and how you can heal them. It's a very beautiful book, very good collection to have. More shorter and nice work, which is more based on, you could say, practical spirituality. Some recommendations for prayer, remembrances, etc., is a book he co-authored with his fellow Zaytuna College co-founder, Imam Zaid Shakir. It's a very beautiful book, very simple book. MashaAllah. If you're to have any 2 books or any 3 books in this list, or everyone should have, it's probably Purification of the Heart, Agenda to Change Your Condition, and Submission. All right, education, speeches, and lectures. Obviously, Shaykh Hamza, if he was just sitting as a scholar in a room somewhere, he'd probably have 100 books right now, or 20 books, 30 books, and all that. But the man's globally advising, leading other generation of leaders, media appearances, meeting with presidents of countries and leaders, giving so many speeches, etc. So he's just very, very busy man, yet puts time out to actually, still spend time with not only family, but even, as we'll talk later, with his constituents and his followers. So the best way to connect his speeches, obviously, is to actually go on YouTube, search Shaykh Hamza. In fact, you can actually see him evolving if you put Shaykh Hamza Yusuf 95 or 96, 97, 98, 2001, etc. You can actually see the different videos that he had, and also how he evolved as a scholar, and the different talks that he has. MashaAllah, some of those lectures that he gave, or some of the courses or sessions that he had, were so good or so popular, or that he wanted to organize. Some of the classes that he had, that he actually packages them and sells them. One of the more classic ones that everyone wants to listen is the rights and responsibilities of marriage. A lot of single people love this, or newly married people. Al-Ghazali, the Book of Knowledge, great talk. Destiny of Man, Khuratul Absar, right? Reflections on Surah Hujurat. Al-Mi'raj, the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Poor Man's Book of Assistance, 16 CD set, really powerful stuff. Vision of Islam, Sheikh Chirik's book that he comments on. Here he comments on Shaykh Ahmad Zarruq's book, very beautiful, marvelous work, Portrait of the Prophet. So you'll see a lot of these packaged things, and I recommend you buy them too, so you support his work. It takes a lot of effort to prepare for these subjects in the intense way that he does, to actually present the subjects, to package it professionally, etc. So do buy his stuff too. I'm sure you can find a lot of it online, but buy stuff too, and go on YouTube and you can find the free stuff. If you want a collection of just a lot of knowledge, mashallah, then please go search for Deen Stream, DEENSTREAM, Deen Stream. That's his work, where him and many other of his colleagues and scholars teach different key essential subjects, and many of his talks and lectures that he teaches at Rihlas when he travels the globe, and everything else in a course format are broken down there. So you can, at the convenience of your own home, study under Shaykh Hamza and others, mashallah. So very blessed work. It's only, I believe, $10 a month. So go for it. May Allah put barakah and make you successful in your studies and make you connected to such great scholars. All right, education. One of the biggest things that Shaykh Hamza did and efforts in constantly to this day is Zaytuna. Zaytuna started in 96 as a institute where he was teaching different subjects of Islam, bringing visiting scholars in, and eventually Shaykh Hamza and Imam Zaid Shakir converted it into a full-blown college. So they partnered up with Berkeley, and the official date they put, the talks started obviously in the 2000s, but the official date they put for the inception of it was 2008. So mashallah, they partnered with Berkeley, started Zaytuna College, and in 2012, right, for the building that they needed of the new campus, they campaigned for 7,000 bricks. Each brick represents $1,000, meaning $7 million for the new campus, and then $12 million for the academic programs. So just that campaign in 2012 alone was around $20 million, mashallah. So Zaytuna itself is probably a 20, probably a 25 to 30 million dollar project so thus far, mashallah. And here you can see different pictures of inspiration. Here Shaykh Hamza is at a big conference, and mashallah, at different conferences you can actually see the different booths they have for Zaytuna. And here, usually it's the students standing there, but here he himself is meeting with the different colleagues and constituents, mashallah. Here's some of the Zaytuna team, some of the co-founders, some of the teachers, mashallah. Here's part of the campus here, mashallah. And all of this, and even when he's sitting in the fundraiser, all of them, Shaykh Hamza's meeting constantly with different people, to actually fundraise for those millions of dollars. He wasn't just sitting and did an online Kickstarter appeal and fundraised the money. He actually went, city to city, did different fundraisers, met with the people. In fact, even after the big speeches in the fundraisers, he would actually come down and sit down like he is. Here he's meeting with different people, right? Here he's sitting down in a fundraiser and just meeting with people, sitting down casually, connecting with them, asking about their concerns, and really caring for them, mashallah. So people really love his down-to-earthness, and he makes you feel as part of the family, even though he's a great and also very, you could say, committed and serious scholar when it comes to living up to the principles of Islam. So Zaytuna College starts, mashallah. They have different graduations. There's Imam Zayd, there's Imam Tahir, who's also part of the faculty, and different people, mashallah, coming together, graduating together. Of course, the difficulty in having the college setting is obviously you can't have as many students. So on average, there's around 10, 15, 20 students of each batch. And part of the education that Shaykh Hamza efforts that he's doing, the education efforts, is actually designing the curriculum, right? The helping guide. This is the first semester what they had to read, right? So he actually brought it one day. Shaykh Hamza brought the books, the trivium, how to read a book, Arabic English dictionary, and different works. So Shaykh Hamza wanted them to have a complete education where they're ready for not only deep Islamic traditional education where they're familiar with the texts, but also to be able to navigate those texts in a modern context to actually solve the global problems like lack of good education, or poverty, or war, etc. So he wanted an institute. The intention is to actually create an institute that connects the traditional sciences with the modern problems of society. And he's working on that regard, and his prayer is that other people also start other institutions too throughout the globe that work in the same regard, and just create prophetic human beings that have the Quran and Sunnah in their hearts and are familiar with the tradition, but also then go forward in both the academic and a practical manner to solve those problems. Now let's talk about his conferences and retreats. Man, where do I start with this? MashaAllah, he has done so much. And most Muslims in America, in the globe, most Muslims know him through YouTube, but most Muslims in America that have been following him or are fans of him know and remember him through some of his physical conferences and speeches where he's just fire. What can you say, man?
And you could do this. Take the child. Don't do this. Take the child. I don't want to be responsible. It's America. They sue you if stuff like that. If you take a child and you throw the child up, there's a point where you see this. They go into this state of complete panic. And then when they come back to your arms, they're laughing. That is dunya. I guarantee you, that moment, that is your life. You came from God, and you're going back to God. And there's just a moment where you're in a complete state of panic. But just relax. You're in good hands. From their heart. When you're cut off from your heart, how do you know what love is? Because the secret of the heart is love. And that's love the Sahaba had for the Prophet ﷺ. Bilal couldn't even live in the city. He went to Sham to live in Syria. One time he came back, this was after 20 years, they convinced him to give the adhan. He didn't want to give the adhan. He couldn't give the adhan in the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ. It was so overwhelming for him because he'd called the Prophet to prayer. So he gave the adhan, and people came flooding out of their houses in tears, thinking the Prophet ﷺ was going to come and lead them in prayer. Because that, even after 20 years, that's how connected their hearts were to the Prophet ﷺ. That's love. That was the state of these people. It was a state of mahabbah. You cannot love Allah without loving what Allah loves. You don't love the beloved without loving what the beloved loves. Because Muslims believed that ihsan, which literally means in Arabic, if you just took the literal meaning of the word, it means to make beautiful. The muhsin is the one that makes something hasan. Allah's names are al-asma al-husna, the beautiful names. The muhsin is the one who makes things beautiful. And our Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allah katab al-ihsana ala kulli shay'in. God has decreed excellence, the making of beautiful things in everything. It should be done with beauty. And this is why the textbooks of Muslims are museum pieces today. And I have a textbook from a Moroccan student from 200 years ago that is a stunning work of art. It was his textbook. It was the book he studied. It has his notes in it. Every time he wrote Allah in transcribing the mutun that he was studying, the text, the didactic poems he was studying, he used gold ink. What kind of people were these? And the poet said, "Tilka atharuna tadullu alayna, fanzuru ba'dana ila al-athari." These are the remnants we leave behind to indicate to you who we were.
Shaykh Hamza has that impact. Allah's given him that gift of speech and love that people come to him in crowds and are ready not only to listen to him, to give their money, to give their lives to him. One of the more significant things that he has done, which is more under his wing, is the Reviving the Islamic Spirit Conference. This was started by some young people, and eventually Shaykh Hamza and others, they were looking for people that could guide them. And Isna rejected, I believe, rejected them and others. And eventually Shaykh Hamza and other ulama came together and said, yeah, we believe in you, we support you. And it became one of the great conferences in Canada, and now it's in America too, etc. MashaAllah. So Shaykh Hamza, many times, or especially in the early years, I don't know about now, would actually design the event program, the subjects, the guest speaker list. And you can see the level of diversity that Shaykh Hamza has by searching up RIS and the different people that he would invite, or that the team would invite. Shaykh Muhammad Yaqubi, Amru Khalid is a famous Arabic scholar, Habib Ali Jifri, Imam Suraj Wahaj, Imam Zaid Shakir, Shaykh Mukhtar Maghrawi, Shaykh Abdullah bin Bayy, Sayyid Hussein Nasr, etc., Suhaib Web. So mashallah, you have beautiful names and a beautiful conference that keeps on going and doing great work. He would also have a Rihla summer program where he would go to like Turkey or Mexico or somewhere else, and people would have extra time to spend with him. And also the Sacred Caravan program, where he would take people to Umrah, to Medina, etc., and guide them to not only the rites of the pilgrimage, the small pilgrimage, but also different sites of the Prophet ﷺ. So mashallah, doing great work where people have different access to actually learning from him, spending time with him, and really gaining benefit from him. Alright, now let's go on to his global advisory work. This is where he talks to some of the big names. Here you can see he was actually invited in a council of different religious leaders to be advised about the Iraq war, whether it should be done or not. He goes there, he sits there with Bush. May Allah either guide him or humiliate him for all the evil that he did. He got a little heat for this, for going there, but he was very clear that Bush shouldn't go in the Iraq war, and that Bush didn't listen. Here he's sitting with Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayy and Bill Gates, mashallah. Here he's sitting with the president of Singapore, Halima Yaqub. Here he's actually in the Muhammad Ali funeral with, youth will probably appreciate this picture. He didn't do advisory here, but I just put it because for the young people watching, they'll appreciate. That's David Beckham, the famous football player, soccer player. Here he's with Dubai leadership, mashallah. And he's with Sheikh Abdullah again and ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and the Jews. And look at how curiously they're looking. All of them are all eyes on him, mashallah, looking. And here he's with Tony Blair, and he just completely. Shaykh Hamza isn't shy about the truth, So he has taken a position after guidance of his sheikh, and we'll talk about this later, that either you work with people for good, or if they're doing evil, especially war, he's going to call them out. So he's sitting with Tony Blair in the World Economic Forum and just calls him out right there. Those of you who don't know, Tony Blair used to be the leader of England. Calls him out on the Iraq war. Here he's with the Sultan of Brunei. So you see he's sitting not only with Muslims, right? Not only with Muslims, but also with, some non-Muslim circles, non-Muslims. And sometimes it's nice talk, sometimes it's advising on not doing war, and sometimes it's like, hey, if you're supporting a war, no, we don't play this game, right? So he's sticking to his principles, and you can see in his interview how he interacts with people. He's not scared of the position, but he's also dealing with hikmah, right? So here he had no reason to actually, then he doesn't have a mindset of, oh, you're a non-Muslim, you're this and this, and I'm going to speak to you in a wrong way, or I'm going to avoid you. No, I'm going to speak to you. And you can see, I'm saying all this now because we're going to talk about some two controversies. And if you don't know the context of Shaykh Hamza, then don't speak about Shaykh Hamza. Only when you know the context and you know the work he's done, then you can appreciate the hard work he's doing for all of us that we don't even have the position for. Anyways, let's continue. MashaAllah, all these pictures are proof in the pudding. MashaAllah, he has a global audience, global standing. And part of this is because Sheikh Abdullah is the president of the Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies, based in United Arab Emirates, and Sheikh Hamza is the vice president of that organization. So because of that, they actually, mashallah, have influence, and he is actually a regular face now in the World Economic Forum, mashallah. So he is sitting in the circle of global leaders, trying to do the little he can, or the great things he can, so that less lives are saved, so that, global leaders focus on the big issues, which are, helping the people out, right? Peace, poverty, environmentalism, living together in harmony, etc., right? So mashallah, that's Shaykh Hamza right there with his global advisory. Guiding the next generation leaders. This is something that's often unlooked and not appreciated, but the number of people officially and unofficially that have been impacted by him, politicians to global leaders to different ulama, different scholars, some that have mentioned it openly, some that privately tell him, etc. It's just numerous and countless. And I think that's one of the blessings of scholars or true scholars, is you can also see the quality of their students and recognize the greatness that they have, right? So let's just go through some names here. This is not a comprehensive list at all. These are just some popular names in America. You have Sheikh Yahya Rodis right here. Sheikh Yahya Rodis, who was one of his students. And Sheikh Yahya actually studies with Sheikh Hamza, converts to Islam, goes to Yemen, goes to other places, and mashallah, a very spiritual human being, very connected to the Yemeni tradition. He's actually follower of Habib Umar, and eventually started his own seminary called Al-Maqasid, and he had these different retreats, as you can see above right there, reviving remembrance retreat, mashallah, where different dhikr is done, different scholars come, mashallah. Here you have Sheikh Faraz Rabbani, who is, mashallah, a really beautiful human being, also studied the Islamic traditions, openly says he was influenced by Shaykh Hamza Yusuf, and started Seeker's Guidance and Seeker's Hub, mashallah, where you can learn a lot of Islamic sciences at the convenience of your own home. Mashallah, does a lot of online work, partners with a lot of people. So he's in Toronto, he's in Pennsylvania. You have Osama Cannon starting Ta'leef Collective, very cool videos, open space for guys and girls that maybe aren't even connected to the faith come, and they can be openly connected to spiritual reminders, to bonding, etc. And he's starting a movement or with other groups like Makerspace, etc. Imam Sohaib Webb of Third Spaces. Here you have Rami Nashashibi, who is started Iman. Iman is the Inter-City Muslim Action Network in Chicago, and they do different festivals, different charity work, different Ramadan things, and mashallah, just great work where Muslims and non-Muslims benefit. And lastly, here in this page, you have Sheikh Rami Nashashibi, who is founder of Taiba Foundation. They're doing great work for prisoners and other people, and really just a great access point. So there's thousands of Muslims and non-Muslims in prison that don't have access to traditional Islam, and they're providing free materials, free education, and they're based in California. MashaAllah, Sheikh Rami spent some time with Sheikh Murabit al-Hajj too, and is a beautiful scholar. And now for some scholarly friends and collaborators. Here you have Imam Siraj Wahaj, you have Dr. Umar F. Abdullah, you have Imam Zaid Shakir, you have Guy Eden, you have Martin Lings, Sheikh Abu Bakr, you have Timothy Winter, Abdul Hakim Murad. Also, as I said before, you can actually go through the different list of speakers at Reviving the Islamic Spirit, and you'll see a diversity of people that Shaykh Hamza either associates with or has invited or has spoken with. Shaykh Hamza is one of the most, if not the most, recognizable and respected figures of Islam in the Western world. He's senior to me in age. He embraced Islam while I was still a toddler, has spent more years preaching and teaching Islam, and has studied more in more countries than I have. An attack on his persona in light of minor slips, look at what he says, minor slips, is not only unwarranted, it is un-Islamic. We are all humans in the end of the day, but some of us have spent a lifetime of service that should make the rest of us pause before we engage in character assassination. The bigger issue nowadays, or it's heated up. First, when Shaykh Hamza went to Bush and advised on the Iraq War, and second, when it came to Trump, Bush, he actually just advised not to go to the Iraq War, and he got a little heat for that. But when it came to Trump, he actually was appointed as part of a council. Of course, he took advice from Sheikh Abdullah. Trump is one of the most anti-Islamic presidents, or you could say anti-immigrant, so much more, and just a clown. But Sheikh Hamza's position, as we'll go through, is one of, hey, my duty is to convey the message in whatever way I can, in positions that other people can't, and we'll see afterwards. It's their responsibility to actually accept it or not accept it. That's between them and Allah, right? If they don't, then that's there. So Shaykh Hamza took a very unpopular position. When it came to Bush, it was just advising, but when it came to Trump now, going in the council, etc., it's caused very bipartisan remarks, because America is becoming very polarized. So people are actually like, oh my God, they hate Trump so much, they love Shaykh Hamza so much, they can't understand why Shaykh Hamza would walk into such a hater's office for any type of dialogue, or anything else of that matter. And he's clarified his position. He was actually shocked that Trump won, and said, he gave a hopeful message that he actually presented and posted on his blog. So of course he's not pro-Trump, but if Trump invites him for some advice, or any other ulama, he feels, and Sheikh Abdullah bin Bay is obviously one of his guides, that he has to at least give the message. And
then when he finished, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bay said, Sayyid al-Ra'is, that message was from the President of Mauritania. Now I have a message from me. President of Mauritania has nothing to do with this. This is from me. And Gaddafi said, what is it? He said, Tubid Allah. He said, you need to make tawbah. And you need to stop saying what you're saying about al-Bukhari. And stop saying what you're saying about the Quran. And he told him. It's all there. The Mauritanian ambassador witnessed this. Gaddafi, people think he probably killed poor Bakr al-Sadr, dumped him in the ocean or something. Like, he could have been killed, literally. But that's what he did. That's karimatu haqqan 'inda sultanin ja'ir. But nobody ever heard about it. And I wouldn't have known about it had not I heard it from this ambassador, because Sheikh doesn't tell what he does in private with people who he sees. But he's a man of nasiha. Whether people listen or not, it's another thing. Allah told Moses to go to Pharaoh. Did Allah not know that Pharaoh was going to reject it? Did he know or not know? He knew, didn't he? right? Because he knows everything. So why did he send him? Why didn't he just say, Pharaoh is never going to believe you, go ahead for the Red Sea, I'll open it for you. Why did he send him? Maybe it's so on Yawm al-Qiyamah he'll say to Pharaoh, I sent you my messenger and you rejected it, now go to hell. Because the hujjah has to tuqam. If there's no hujjah, the person's innocent. If you never heard the message, there's no... So it's people say, oh, they'll never listen to you. It doesn't matter whether they listen to you or not. Maybe they will. Who are you to decide who people are? Who do you think you are? That somebody's... Maybe Pharaoh would have listened, right? He didn't. But who was Moses even to say, I'm not going to go to Pharaoh, he's not going to listen. That's what Ayub, right? Yunus ibn Matta, he left. Because he didn't think the people would listen to him. And he ended up being thrown over the ship. And then he went back to Nineveh and they all made Tawbah. But he, in his own mind, he thought they weren't going to make Tawbah. So this is our deen, you know, and my advice to myself and all of you is, kun ma'allah wa la tubali. Be right with God and don't worry, don't concern yourself.
Alright, so that was that clip. I hope you enjoyed it and see his perspective. Even if you disagree with it or hate Trump and hate anyone that would go in it, I hope that you at least appreciate the perspective. And of course, he is trying to be very grounded in tradition. That's why Shaykh Abdullah, he asked for the usul, he asked for the different things in private conversations. Of course, we don't know the whole details of private, but you never know who through a private conversation can become Muslim. You know, Shaykh Hamza realized that because he himself became Muslim. So, or at least become Muslim friendly. Sometimes it takes years and someone breaks down. In Europe, there is actually a super anti-Islamophobe that actually converted to Islam. So you never know. And Shaykh Hamza, if he's the means, so be it. So once again, X, not really a controversy, especially when you understand the context. How do you support Shaykh Hamza? MashaAllah, we went through a beautiful biography of him. Number one, subscribe to Deen Stream. $10 a month isn't that much. Go to Sandala. I think that's the best way to buy any of his products because I think it's closest associated to him. So more than Amazon or something else, I'd go there to buy any audio, books, anything else. And number three is Zaytuna College. You can donate to them, support their cause. They sometimes need student scholarships too, etc. And they're going strong, mashallah. Shaykh Hamza Yusuf, there you have it, my folks. Lion of the West, a legend that has shaped the course of America's history, a genius with no students that can keep up with his depth and breadth of study and articulation yet, someone whose impact will be studied for years to come, the sole reason many people kept their Islam during their times of struggle and during America's time of struggle, a warrior trying to heal and save the world. Shaykh Dr. Hamza Yusuf Hansen is the founder of Zaytuna College and VP of Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies, but in reality, he is also so much more: an inspiration, a guide, a father, a teacher, the beloved and fearless Lion of the West. May Allah preserve him and grant him students and followers that inherit his fikr, his concern, and love of Allah and the Deen, students that expand his work and actualize his dreams for a brighter future and a brighter world. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Jazakallah khair for watching the video. Please subscribe, please comment on whatever point you really loved, or if you're a diehard Shaykh Hamza fan, what new thing you learned, inshallah. If you want more videos, please let me know what you want. And if someone wants to take this video and make it more professional, make it more amazing, there's no copyright on any of this stuff, please do so. Anything for the Shaykh, inshallah, is just some sadaqah that we can also create, and some clarification we can do for the khidmah and all of what he's done for us. May Allah preserve him, have mercy on him, open the greatest openings spiritually and worldly and otherworldly in the afterlife for Shaykh Hamza Yusuf and for everything. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.